Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our online engagement event for the Rosewood and Lakewood Suburban Center neighborhoods. My name is Natalie Bode, and I'm the Senior Transportation Engineer responsible for neighborhood traffic reviews. I'm joined by Julian Petrus, the Project Manager for the Rosewood and Lakewood Suburban Center neighborhood traffic review. And we're also joined by Chelsea Lanning, another member of the neighborhood traffic review team. And Chelsea will be helping us behind the scenes tonight, managing the question and answer forum. Please note that our meeting tonight will be recorded and posted to the Engage page for the Rosewood and Lakewood Suburban Center neighborhood traffic review. This will allow anyone who was unable to participate tonight to watch the video and let us know if they have any additional traffic concerns. Online meetings are still pretty new to us, so we appreciate your patience as we make our way through all of the materials. To ensure that the meeting runs as smoothly as possible and that we have the least technical difficulties as we can with audio, we ask that you please type your comments in the question and answer box, and I will read them a little bit later in the evening. If you're unable to use the question and answer box, or if you have any other technical difficulties tonight, we encourage you to reach out to us through one of our other engagement methods. We have options for email, phone, an online survey, letters, the Report a Traffic Issue app, and we'll provide details for all of those a little bit later in the meeting. It looks like we've got a pretty good turnout tonight. We have 10 signed in right now, and I saw 12 earlier, so maybe those people will join us again. I hope that you've all had a chance to review our video series. The videos provide an overview about the neighborhood traffic review process, common solutions that we use to address traffic issues, and some of the traffic concerns that have been brought to our attention in the neighborhood prior to tonight's meeting. I apologize if there is a delay in your video. It all depends on our internet connections, so it might appear more delay for some people than others. So if you turn on the closed captioning, sometimes that can help you follow along even if there is a delay in your video. Tonight, we're really hoping to hear from you. We want to know where you're experiencing any traffic issues, things like speeding, pedestrian or cycling safety, or traffic safety. You are the experts of your own neighborhood, and so we really rely on your knowledge of the area to let us know where those traffic issues are. Please feel free to start entering your comments in the chat box, and I'll make a couple of introductions. So tonight we are joined by Councillor Bev Dubois. She's your council representative for the area, and we thank her for joining us tonight. Councillor Dubois, did you have any comments you wanted to share with the group tonight?
Hi, Natalie. Sure, I'll say a few things. I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us on the call today. It's probably the hottest day I think we've had, not only this summer, but probably in the last 5 years. So thank you for being in front of a screen to join us for this extremely important meeting this evening. And I just hope that you're enjoying your summer, despite it being a very different summer with the pandemic. And I really just wanted to briefly let you know that City Council and the administration have not missed a step during this entire pandemic. And we've actually had more meetings with virtual. You can do meetings 12 hours a day or 24 hours a day, and you can go right from one to another. You don't have to drive. You don't have to go to the other end of City Hall. So I think we've all had even more meetings through this pandemic. But my point is that we haven't missed a step. We are continuing to run the city in the best way that we can through this pandemic. And I want to thank all of you and your friends and neighbors in the city for stepping up and helping to flatten the curve to prevent the spread of COVID-19 as you go about your everyday lives, and try to keep them as normal as possible, even though I don't like that saying back to normal, or but it is something that we're all kind of striving for. this meeting, these neighborhood traffic review meetings are so important. I've been to many over the years. The administration are absolutely fantastic. They're very experienced in organizing and putting these meetings together, as well as actually the night of the meeting to facilitate them. They're very well versed and they know their stuff. So I'm really proud to have the folks with us here this evening, as well as we're dealing with things that affect everyday, all of us in our everyday life, like Natalie mentioned. Speed, traffic volume, speed and pedestrian studies. Going too fast in certain neighborhoods. Like, we don't know those things unless if you tell us. And I also want to thank those that have reached out to me already with some issues, because they couldn't be on the call tonight, as well as I know that you've reached out to the administration as well with some issues prior to this meeting. So I just want to thank you all very much for being here. I want to thank the administration for being here as well. As I said, I'm very proud to work with them and they do a great job. So I'll turn it back over to you, Natalie. I look forward to the rest of the meeting and hearing what folks have to say.
Thanks, Councillor Dubois, for those kind words. Yeah, we really do our best to address as much as we can for the residents of the neighborhood, and we want to make it a great place to live, work, and play. So on to the next introduction. Often at these meetings, we're joined by a member of the traffic unit for the Saskatoon Police Service. Unfortunately, Staff Sergeant Devin Rassicott was unable to join us this evening. So if you have any enforcement issues you'd like to bring to their attention, please feel free to submit them tonight, and we'll make sure that Staff Sergeant Rassicott gets a hold of those to consider them for enforcement. And so unfortunately he was unable to join us, and he sent his regrets. Unforeseen circumstances came up. So we'll make sure that he gets those, and we'll work with him to address that. All right, Julian, at this point, would you like to share your screen, and we'll start with an overview of the locations of concern that we've heard so far?
Sure. So hello, everyone. Once again, my name is Julian Petrus, and I'm going to be the project manager for the Rosewood and Lakewood Suburban Center NTR. Today, we're going to be discussing traffic in your neighborhood, including some of the things you like about the traffic patterns, as well as some of the issues you are currently experiencing. So I want to start off by going over the study limits and discussing which roads will and won't be included in the traffic review. On your screen, you should be seeing a map of your neighborhoods. The area I will be studying is bound by Boychuk Drive to the west, Taylor Street to the north, West Road and Zimmerman Road to the east, and then Highway 16 to the south. So the study is going to look at all of the local and collector roads within this area. If you have any concerns with the surrounding arterial roads like Boychuk Drive or Taylor Street, they'll be reviewed under a separate process. So we've already heard a number of concerns from residents in your neighborhood. As Councillor Dubois said earlier, she's heard from a few people. So far, the concerns have fallen into three broad categories: traffic operations, which includes things like parking restrictions, sightlines, signage, etc. Pedestrian safety, which includes requests for new or upgraded pedestrian crossing devices, and just general speeding concerns throughout the neighborhood. In a second here, I'm going to go through a few examples of some of the concerns we've heard already. But I first just want to remind you all that we'll be taking a look at your concerns tonight. So if there's anything you'd like to discuss, please send it to us through the Q&A feature in Teams, and we'll get to it a bit later in the presentation. So getting into those examples, some of the concerns with traffic operations that we've received are a request for a parking restriction on Slimmin Place in order to improve the visibility of oncoming traffic. We've also heard that drivers on Flynn Manor are parking very close to the intersection with Olsen Lane West, which can make it difficult to see if it's safe to turn onto Olsen Lane. Then we've heard from quite a few different residents that have suggested that we install a four-way stop at the intersection of Rosewood Gate and Meadows Boulevard. They've all kind of said that it's difficult to turn onto Rosewood Gate due to the median and the restricted sightlines with the parking so close to the intersection. So in terms of some of the speeding concerns that we've received, we've heard that there is excessive speeding on Slimmin Road near Slimmin Place. and at a number of locations on Rosewood Boulevard throughout the neighborhood. For the pedestrian safety concerns, we've heard from residents that they would like to see improvements to the pedestrian crossings at Rosewood Boulevard and Lettingham Drive / Rosewood Drive, Rosewood Boulevard and Hastings Crescent / Chanot Way, Rosewood Boulevard and Olson Lane West, and Rosewood Boulevard and Lettingham Way / Tweed Lane. So these are just some of the examples of the concerns we've heard so far. We're here tonight to gather more feedback from you so that we can create a plan for gathering traffic data and performing site observations before coming back to talk with you guys again next year. Now I'd like to open up the floor for comments and questions, which Natalie will be gathering through the chat box. All of your comments and questions will be documented in the project file and are reviewed as part of the project. So what do we got, Natalie?
Okay, we've got a few comments already, so thanks for putting those in. And I see some people are liking the comments, so that shows that you agree with them. So that helps us monitor how popular those are. So the first one is just wondering when a second entrance into Rosewood will be completed, as the traffic flow on Rosewood Boulevard is very busy and fast, and someone is going to get hurt soon.
All right, so there's, oh, you want to go, Natalie?
No, I was just going to suggest this might be a good time to give them an update.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. So I had a slide on this topic a bit later in the presentation, so I guess we could just jump to that right off the bat. So I guess I'll just take an opportunity to give everyone an update on some of the road construction projects that are going on right now in the neighborhood. So Meadows Parkway and the two eastbound lanes on the south side of Taylor Street between West Road and Meadows Parkway is expected to open to traffic this month or even in the next week or two. You can see that portion of the project in orange on the map on your screen. And then the two eastbound lanes on the south side of Taylor Street between Rosewood Gate and Meadows Parkway is expected to open to two-way traffic at the end of October. And that section of the project is shown in green on the map. So they're just going to be doing the two southbound lanes, but it will be two-direction traffic on those two lanes. So once those projects are completed, there will be that additional kind of main access into Rosewood from Zimmerman Road, kind of near Costco. So hopefully that answers your question and can help alleviate some of that congestion coming into Rosewood.
Okay, thanks for that. The next comment that came in was, I'm concerned about the traffic on Phelps Way and Tweed off of Rosewood Boulevard. It's supposed to be two-way, but at most times only one car can pass because cars are parked on both sides of the street. On garbage day, we are dodging cars as well as garbage cans. Cars are parked too close to the intersection and the stop sign. Someone is going to get hurt.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard from a few different people through a few different methods, just kind of different places in the neighborhood where the streets kind of seem a bit too narrow when there's cars parked on both sides. And this is something we've kind of heard from various neighborhoods throughout the city. But just in general, for kind of all these different types of concerns, the majority of local roads are designed to have parking on both sides of the street. And we designed those local roads to be narrower, and designing those local roads to be narrower is becoming the norm in most cities because it reduces speed in residential neighborhoods. So any sort of parking restriction must comply with the city's policy on parking and parking prohibition. So as part of the neighborhood traffic review, we'll look into whether or not a parking restriction will help to alleviate that restricted roadway. If those cars are blocking sight lines for motorists entering an alley, a driveway, or an intersection, but we won't really be considering a parking restriction for the entire length of the street at this time. So if you're interested in kind of getting more information on the parking restrictions, it's outlined in the traffic bylaw 7200, which says drivers shouldn't park within 1 meter of any private driveway or 10 meters of an intersection. If someone is kind of violating those rules and causing an issue, you can call parking enforcement at 306-975-8344. So hopefully that answers the question with the narrow street.
Yeah, and if if there are intersections of particular concern, like cars parked too close to the intersection and the stop sign, please be very specific with the locations where you're seeing those issues so that Jillian can investigate those further.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the next comment that came in, are there plans to install a sound barrier in Rosewood along Highway 16, similar to the sound wall in Lake Ridge? Or how can Rosewood be placed on the traffic noise attenuation program?
So, Natalie, would this fall under the berm?
Yes, yeah.
So then it, I don't know, I guess you have more experience with this stuff than I do. Do you want to handle
Sure.
this one?
Sure, I can handle this one. Yeah, so our traffic noise sound attenuation program is intended to address noise for recreational backyards, the recreational space of a person's property. And the program was created to maintain that quality of the outdoor amenity space. So the only locations that are on the monitoring list are the ones that are considered for additional sound attenuation. Arterial streets and new neighborhoods where a berm has been built already provides sound attenuation for that outdoor space. So although traffic noise may be increasing with time, those locations with a berm are not eligible for additional sound attenuation measures, unfortunately. It's just not feasible to build a sound wall above a berm, and there's only a certain level of height that's feasible for construction. Okay, so the next question on the list, there's a few items in it, I think. They're wondering why there's a need for continued studies. Sorry, speeding, sightlines, and associated elements are not fundamentally new issues. So they're hoping that the timelines won't be as long as those outlined. They're hoping that testing and associated studies like our warrant analysis and things could be accelerated over the timeline shown in our next steps video, I think it is, that they watched. Okay. They don't see a need for it to take another 36 months. And then they get specific about certain issues that they want accelerated. So the Rosewood bus stop at the corner of Lettingham Crescent and Rosewood Boulevard, because there are sightline issues, and the types of anticipated pedestrian crossings that are being implemented in the 5 sections outlined in the previous videos. So all the different pedestrian device types, where we're looking at implementing those.
Okay, so certainly some improvements can be implemented sooner than others. There is kind of like a base time that it's going to take us to, have this meeting, collect all the feedback from all of the residents in the neighborhood, put together a traffic plan that we have to bring it back to the residents next year to kind of get more feedback on the plan itself. And once we have that, we can implement some of the easier recommendations, like if there's any signs we can put up or pavement markings, those are relatively quickly, we can put them up relatively quickly. But any of the larger stuff has to be budgeted for and it has to be scheduled to be put in. So those are the ones that can take a bit longer. And what were some of the specific ones, Natalie?
There was the bus stop at Rosewood and Lettingham Crescent. Inability to see oncoming
getting installed. Oh, okay.
Well, I think they're having sightline issues because of where the curve is and where the bus stop is on the curve. So they're talking about maybe transit stop and things. And then just describing the types of anticipated pedestrian crossings. So at this point, we don't know yet which device will be going at which location. We're just collecting locations right now, and then we'll determine which type of device is best suited for each of the locations that align with our pedestrian crossing policy.
Yeah. and also just collecting the data at those locations to see kind of what we can put up there. It does take some time. But certainly with the bus stop, that's something we can look into, and if we do need to move it, we have to have some discussions with transit and those other groups.
Yeah, I just wanted to expand a little bit on why things take so long and why we don't necessarily accelerate one issue over another. And that's the neighborhood traffic review is intended to look at the neighborhood as a whole, holistically, because in the past, we would address one issue on one street, like installing a stop sign or whatever the case may be, and then we'd hear from another street that, oh, everybody's using my street now to avoid the stop sign. So that's why we really intend to look at the neighborhood as a whole, and some of the decisions, you know, are correlated. So that's, we'll hang on to them until we can come to the neighborhood with the plan. Okay, so the next comment, my first concern is Palachenko and Slimmin, mainly a pedestrian, and have noticed that there's an increase in near misses when crossing from Palachenko to the park on the other side of Slimmin. And I think this is the location where we've heard quite a bit about already. Vehicles parked on Slimmin Road reduce the visibility of pedestrians and vehicles, and it makes crossing an issue. And I only see this getting worse as more people move into the neighborhood, and people speed in this area as well.
Yeah, we've heard a few different concerns with speeding on Slimmin Road, and any place where we're looking at putting in a pedestrian crossing, you know, we have to get an idea of how many people are actually crossing there, how many vehicles are driving down that road. And just kind of looking at all that stuff will allow us to see, you know, can we put in a just a regular pedestrian crossing with signs on either side, or can we put one in with a push button or an overhead sign? There's a few different options we can look at depending on how many people are crossing there.
All right, the next comment is Rosewood Gate North and Wershner Street could use either a pedestrian crossing or a four-way stop. The recent accident brought it to more urgent attention as many people cross at this location to get to the green space, which is very lovely. They like the green space. Yeah, Rosewood has a really good network of parks, so.
Yeah, I've heard this comment from a few different people just because I think it connects Swan Park and Struthers Park. I might have those names wrong, but there's kind of Wershner Street forms the connection between the two parks, and there isn't a pedestrian crossing across Rosewood Gate there. So that's definitely one of the locations we're going to be looking at closer to see if we can put something in.
Okay, that sounds good. Sorry, I just lost my focus here. We are seeing lots of people utilizing Slimmin to fix their vehicles and park their work vehicle. Is there any way we can limit parking on Slimmin Road?
In terms of parking their work vehicles, I think that would just fall under the city standard bylaw for parking, which I have to double check, but I believe you can't leave it for more than a day or two without moving it. Natalie, do you know about the working on the cars in the streets? I haven't run into that recently.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about working on the car in the street, but there is definitely a time restriction and a size restriction for vehicles parked on the road. And if you have concerns, again, I'd encourage you to reach out to parking enforcement for those issues.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the plan to navigate traffic flow with Tim Hortons, Rosewood Drive, and Lettingham Place?
Lettingham Place. So is that the first intersection on the left?
That's the one by the.
I think so.
Yes, yeah, just coming into the neighborhood there, yeah.
I know I heard from a few people that in the mornings with the Tim Hortons and people trying to exit Rosewood on Rosewood Boulevard there could be a pretty big queue kind of going back all the way onto Rosewood Boulevard, even to Tweed Lane. So we're not as part of this NTR because Taylor Street is one of those arterials that aren't included in it. But one of our other groups within the transportation group that looks at traffic signals. We'll be looking at that Taylor Street and Rosewood Boulevard intersection to see if there's anything we can do to.
This one's Rosewood Drive. It's Rosewood Drive and Lettingham Place.
Rosewood Drive and Lettingham Place.
So, yeah, I think Chelsea's got it there on the Google. So, yeah, for intersections like this, it is tricky because it's too close to the signals at Boychuk Drive for us to really consider signals at this point in time. We do monitor intersections like this for signals. However, at this point, signals would not be warranted, but we are looking at this location. We have heard about it for a pedestrian crossing device. So I think their concern was with traffic flowing coming out of the Tim Hortons onto Rosewood.
Oh, yeah. And I had heard that part of that problem was the backup from Taylor and Rosewood Drive. So I think there's a few connected problems there with all the intersections so close and the people coming in and out of that commercial area. So we'll have to take a look, and I'll probably be out there a couple mornings to kind of see how it's flowing.
Okay. All right, so another concern is at Polachenko Lane and Herald Road. There are 2 city bus stops and at least 2 school bus stops. This crossing is not as big an issue during the daylight hours, but in the mornings and evenings when it is dark, cars do not stop at this intersection for pedestrians. I have seen a number of people almost get hit, and I worry about children crossing there in the dark winter mornings.
Okay, and yeah, we can definitely look into it. One of the possible pedestrian crossing devices we have is an overhead crossing that actually has a downward-facing light that can help to illuminate the crosswalk. So if crossing in the dark is a problem there, we'll consider that as one of the possible options. But again, it's just collecting the data and seeing how many people are crossing and how many vehicles are crossing there during those peak times.
Yeah, and we also work with our colleagues at the power companies. So if it is illumination right at the corner, sometimes it's on their end that they can install an additional street light near the crosswalk. So that's something else we can consider. All right, next comment. There is a sidewalk missing and a large unkempt lot across from 142 Polachenko Lane, which inhibits pedestrian ability to walk down that area.
Okay, I think I was looking at this one the other day, and I'll have to verify it, but I believe part of that missing crosswalk is because of that undeveloped land, or the land that's currently being developed there. So once the development is completed, that crosswalk should be filled in. I'll have to verify all that, but it should be installed.
Okay. We have concerns with traffic driving on the left side of the road going around the curve of Pickler Crescent in the 300 block. There have been many near misses, and this needs to be addressed before someone on a bike is hurt. And they also followed up that they've attempted to put up slow down turtle signs that were then stolen. And they've had 2 incidents this week alone where they were almost T-boned when turning into their driveway by vehicles driving to the left of the center. So they're hugging the left curb.
Okay. We can definitely take a look at that and see if there's any sort of signage we can put up, or if a parking restriction is needed to kind of maintain those sight lines around the curve. I'll have to get out there and take a look at that one.
Yeah, I'm going to see what's going on there now. Is there any plan to add pedestrian crossing lights at Taylor and Slimmin when Taylor opens up further? It's not an issue now since it's mostly local traffic and people are mindful of pedestrians crossing from Hyde Park to Donna Berkmeyer Park, but that is going to change when Taylor is open to the new shopping area that contains Costco.
And again, we kind of have a separate group that looks at traffic signals and signal timings. And part of that timing is figuring out pedestrian crossings or what's needed to accommodate pedestrians at those traffic signals. So that would have to be part of a separate assessment, not part of this neighborhood traffic review.
Yeah, I think it's just a stop control right now. So they're just looking for a crossing across Taylor, which, as Julian mentioned at the beginning.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, it's an arterial corridor. So it's a little bit outside of the neighborhood traffic review scope. But that is something that our group would still look at. So we'll assemble those comments for Taylor and take a look at it outside of the NTR.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's a couple more follow-up comments about noise and the sound wall. So one of them is, it is feasible to add a sound wall with a berm when you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to custom build a home and the berm is not blocking traffic noise and impeding. And so the other question about that is, if the berm is not providing the intended sound protection, what do you recommend residents do to remediate it? We can clearly see the roadway from our deck. The berm is not tall enough to dampen sound. So that's a bit of a tricky one. We can double check whether the berm has settled from its original intended height. But as mentioned earlier, it won't be eligible for a sound attenuation wall.
Would this possibly fall under the study we might be conducting in the future?
I don't think it's eligible through the sound attenuation policy.
Okay.
Because it already has a berm, so it makes it ineligible. Okay, so let me see. What is your plan to address potentially lowered traffic volumes as a result of the pandemic, creating possible lower than real world scenarios and measurement of traffic flow, volume, and speed?
So this one is one we've been tracking this for quite a few months now. We've been comparing the traffic volumes in a few key streets throughout the city with their 2019 volumes compared to their 2020 volumes. So we saw pretty significant, 50, 60% drops in volumes in kind of April, May, March, but they're starting to creep back up to those normal volumes. So we're going to continue monitoring those traffic volumes and seeing, is it okay to start doing those counts now? And if we do those counts, what's kind of our expected reduction over what a normal value would be? And kind of if we need to make some adjustments, we will. But it's definitely something we're thinking about and trying to figure out how we're going to accommodate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are starting data collection for some neighborhoods already because they have kind of climbed up to very close to normal levels, maybe about a 20% reduction. But overall, that wouldn't create a huge impact to the solution that we'd be recommending. So we don't know if the traffic volumes will ever return to what they used to be, because these work from home scenarios may become more permanent than what we expected. So we couldn't just in good conscience sit and wait for a scenario that may never occur. We really wanted to get into your neighborhood and address the ongoing issues as soon as we could, which means we will have to count during the pandemic. And as Julian mentioned, we'll make adjustments if we need to, if we think that it's not reflective of what's actually happening in the neighborhood. But overall, the pattern should be similar to to what near normal conditions are. Another question or comment, we have concerns about the speed at which people drive past Swick Park coming from Boychuk. There are many kids and family that play at that park. And I know you had that one in your slide, Julian, so we've heard about that one quite a few times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've heard some concerns about speed on Rosewood Boulevard at a few places throughout the neighborhood, especially near all the parks. And, you know, this fall or once we start doing that data collection, we'll be looking at, you know, setting up some radars to see how fast people are going, and then looking at what sort of speed mitigation measures we could put in there, whether that's a speed display board that'll tell you kind of how fast you're driving. You know, we have other options like curb extensions, even, you know, some of our kind of last options we can look at are speed bumps or speed humps. We did have a series on some of our speed mitigation measures, or we have a video on the NTR page if you're interested in some of those or in learning about some of those.
Yeah, it might also be a good time to talk about the speed limit review that's happening, Julian.
Oh, yes, sure. I have a little blurb on that. So as requested by,
sorry, go ahead.
So recently requested by City Council, we are undertaking a speed limit review for residential streets. More specifically, we're reviewing the posted speed limits on residential streets, including the possibility of lowering the posted speed limit. We're going to be looking at removing reduced speed limits for high schools, potentially reducing speed limits in playground zones, and the potential for establishing senior zones. So this is all going to be in a report that we anticipate will be presented to council in 2021. So this is something we're looking at for the whole city, not just Rosewood or any one neighborhood.
Yeah. So, and as I mentioned, the playgrounds are included. So Swick Park, if we decide to reduce speed limits near playground zones, that might happen near there. Okay, is there an option to put speed bumps in neighborhood areas where speeding is an issue? For instance, Rosewood Gate North and also on Wershner Street, as there are people who feel the need to accelerate from one corner to another and it's a short stretch of road.
Yes, you know, speed bumps are an option. We look at a few different ways of reducing speed limits. Like I said, the speed display boards, curb extensions, in some places, we will put speed bumps. We try to avoid putting them on some of the main entrances and exits to the neighborhoods, as they can slow down emergency vehicle responses. So we did recently put some speed humps in on, what was the street, Natalie?
Glasgow.
I'm blanking. Glasgow. Yeah. And that's kind of one of those, it's not a main street, but there was a speeding issue, so we were able to put them in there. It's definitely something to consider, but there are downsides to putting in speed humps, and that's something we also consider when making that decision.
Yeah, we tend to start with horizontal deflection devices and see if that's effective, because it's a lot easier for our operations crews to work around curbs than to work over speed humps. And speed humps have pretty significant transit impacts. So if it's a transit route, we really want to try other methods before speed humps. Okay, my concern is with respect to the before and after school traffic surrounding our new P3 schools. There are many small children walking and attempting to cross Olson Lane, and there's only one controlled location to do so safely. This crosswalk in front of the school makes most sense arriving to the schools, but does not work well at the end of the day. The flow of pedestrian traffic moves along the existing sidewalk on the school side toward Rosewood Boulevard, but then have limited safe spots to cross Olson toward Gillies. The road traffic is hectic, while the roundabout is not complete closer to the school. Drop-off car and bus traffic make walking to our schools dangerous. Please help our kids, help keep our kids walking and safe.
Mhm. Yeah, I know I've heard a few concerns of people talking about the pedestrian crossings on Olsen Lane there, even just accessing the parks. So it's definitely something we're going to be looking at. Can we add some more, reinforced crossing locations to kind of give people a better opportunity to cross the street safely there. So definitely something we're aware of and that we're going to be looking into.
Why have there never been any study for speed restriction? Example, playground speeds for Rosewood Boulevard, specifically Swick Park. And secondly, why are there no dedicated crosswalks to allow for crossing Rosewood Boulevard to the schools, specifically Rosewood Boulevard and Olsen Lane? So I think we answered the Swick Park one already with the speed limit review.
Yeah.
And at Olsen Lane
for the
swalk, yeah, but not. I think they must be looking for a device, an active pedestrian device.
Mm-hmm. And that's something we'll look into. We do have to kind of collect that data to get an idea of how many people are crossing there. And I guess especially for these ones near the school, we're going to have to, wait for school to get started and actually be able to capture those kids making the trip to and from school in the mornings and the afternoons to get a good idea of what that traffic is.
Yeah, and we'll also consider the proximity of the curves. I know some people have mentioned that, like you just can't see them because of the horizontal curves to the east. So something for us to review as well. A follow-up comment to Rosewood Boulevard and Tweed and Leadingham. A controlled intersection may offer a more attractive way for people exiting Tim Hortons to get onto Rosewood Boulevard going westbound and onto Boychuk South. Comment noted.
And I think this is one of those ones where we do have some guidance on how close traffic signals can be spaced from each other. So I'm not sure of the exact distances here, but it's definitely something we'll have to, at least consider to see if it's feasible.
Okay. Can you provide the reasoning for the black rubber temporary curbing that was installed at Rosewood Drive and Rosewood Boulevard? It makes it extremely difficult to turn onto Rosewood Boulevard from Rosewood Drive, especially with oncoming traffic, due to the wide turn you have to make.
So those temporary curbs that you can see at a few locations in the neighborhood came from an interim NTR that we did back in 2017. We had enough requests coming from the neighborhood that we wanted to take a look at a few of the key intersections. And there were some recommendations to put in a couple curb extensions, which are those kind of black rubber curbs that you see. So the goal of those curbs is to encourage traffic to slow down. So like with many of our improvements, there are some downsides. So yes, we're hoping it decreased traffic speeds, but it can have that impact of making it a bit more difficult to make that turn.
Yeah, and we're still reviewing the effectiveness of those devices. So if we need to adjust them as Julian makes his way through with his review, we can change the geometry of them if needed. I've submitted this online and via RCA before, so that's the Community Association, but haven't seen anything done. A four-way stop is needed at Rosewood Gate North, Meadows Boulevard, and Hastings intersection. It's impossible to see traffic driving north on Rosewood Gate when you're at the stop sign on Meadows Boulevard to turn left or right. Left turns are particularly dangerous, and that area of road is icy in the cold months because there's a dip in the road, so drivers often slide through the stop sign. It's also a busy pedestrian crosswalk intersection.
Yeah, this is definitely the location I've received the most comments on so far. And I was out there a few weeks ago just to kind of take a look at it. And I definitely get what people are saying with those restricted sight lines, just kind of where that stop sign is placed. And then there's the median on the south side, and the parking kind of makes it very difficult to see traffic coming or northbound traffic coming from the south there. So I can see what the concern is, and we're going to try to figure out, how we can improve that for the drivers. And it's good to know about kind of the vehicles sliding through there in the winter.
Okay, so this is a follow-up to the Swick Park comments. Speed display boards, vertical speed measures, and traffic congestion measures have already been attempted on Rosewood at Swick. Please come up with another solution other than what has already been done.
Okay. I'll have to take a look through our files to see kind of exactly what we've done there in the past, and see if there are any other options we could try. I'm not sure exactly what we've done there, but if we have tried those, we'll have to see kind of what other options we have in our toolkits.
Yeah, the speed display boards are definitely a temporary measure, and I know when they were installed there, they actually were vandalized. So they stopped working for a bit and we had to go out and repair it. So it does seem like that won't be effective there. I don't believe we tried any vertical measures. It's the horizontal measures, the curb extensions. So yeah, when we review the effectiveness of those measures, we can either change the configuration or consider something new. And I know we've had requests for a different pedestrian device as well. So we'll review those when we look at that location. Okay, so follow up with Swick Park again. In regards to posting at the speed signs, drivers will slow down for these measures, therefore it will not be an accurate measure. So the speed display devices, I think I understand what they're saying, Julian, so I'll just answer it. I think the speed display devices, they don't actually collect data. They're just a passive device that flash the information to the driver to kind of passively get them to reduce their speeds. So if they didn't realize how fast they were going, they'll see it flash at them and like, oh, I have to lay off the pedal a little bit. But they don't actually collect any data. So when we collect data, it's not when the speed display device is in place, unless we're measuring if that's effective or not.
Yeah, we collect data, like the devices are unintrusive, like they're not obvious that they're collecting data. So it shouldn't impact people driving through it. Like they won't know that we're collecting their speeds as they drive through that area.
Okay. Yeah, and someone else noted that with speed display boards, people slow down to go past them and then they speed up again once they have gone by. And that's the same for speed humps. That's the same for a lot of traffic calming measures, that it tightens up at that pinch point and the drivers slow down to go through there and they speed up a little bit past it. But our intent is that when they speed up past it, the speed is still not speeding. It's at the posted speed limit or below, ideally. Yeah.
And then there's always the option of talking with our colleagues at the Saskatoon Police Service and trying to get more enforcement. You know, there's always a combination of, you know, doing this engineering work, doing that enforcement work, and also just education in the neighborhood, trying to get people to slow down in those areas.
So another comment, I would like your recommendation for the safest crossing point for a 7-year-old to cross the busy Rosewood Boulevard at Olson. While I understand the need for measurement, how would the numbers inform you further if there is currently no method to cross? So there is a zebra crosswalk at that location with curb extensions. So I wouldn't say there is no method to cross. There is something in place there. Drivers should be yielding to pedestrians wanting to cross at any intersection. And the zebra crosswalk does provide further notification to the driver of that location. So, and it's on Julian's list to look at.
Yep. And I guess to add to that, you know, we do take different factors into consideration as well. You know, as Natalie said earlier, there's that curve nearby and that can make it more difficult to see people crossing. So just because, you know, there might be a few less people here crossing, we do take those other things into account.
And we also factor in the age of pedestrians wanting to cross when we do our warrant. So just in case. So children and seniors both get extra points because they need a little bit more time to cross, more assistance. Okay, Meadows Boulevard has become a heavy traffic road as it's the only one that has access to the Costco shopping area shortcut. We're getting a lot of heavy trucks passing through as well, driving fast. This road wasn't expected to be the main thoroughfare, and it's got a lot of crescent roads off of it. Visibility is limited with many parked cars. People are crossing over to the park and have a hard time. Suggest some slowing barrier curbs to deter traffic and at least slow them down, especially around the park and where the road curves and visibility is limited at the connecting roads.
Yeah, and we can definitely look into the issues with speeding. I'm hoping once the rest of Taylor Street and Meadows Parkway are finished in the next month or so, that a lot of that shortcutting issue will be eliminated, just with those trucks and drivers wanting to take those major roads to access Costco and not have to divert through the neighborhood. So hopefully it'll address itself with the new roadways.
Yeah, and Julian will make sure that his data collection for Meadows Boulevard is done after all of that is open, so that it's more reflective of the after condition. So, can there be a four-way stop at the intersection on Rosewood Boulevard by the Tim Hortons? So this is the one we were talking about for signals. So this one, they're asking for a four-way stop. I know myself, trying to cross the street, no one sees you. And trying to cross the street with the stroller is scary. Can a crosswalk also be installed? Yeah.
We'll definitely be looking at the crosswalk there. We've heard that from a few different people. We will, assess for a four-way stop, but generally we try to avoid putting those stop conditions on the main roads like Rosewood Boulevard because it does impede the traffic flow so much. Ideally, if you are having trouble crossing there as a pedestrian, our solution there would be to increase your safety with some sort of pedestrian crossing device.
Yeah, there's also in our four-way stop traffic control policy, there is a certain distance from a traffic signal when a four-way stop can be warranted. So if it's too close to Boychuk, we won't be able to recommend a four-way stop there, even if the volumes would reflect the need for one. So just something to keep in mind. Could lowered curbs be put in where the paths of the two parks meet, McKay Park and the baseball diamond, for bikes and strollers to cross? I'm not sure where McKay Park is.
I'm not familiar with that one.
I know we did hear a request for curb ramps on Olson Lane near the school because there's the walkway there. I'm not sure if that's the same location or not.
I do remember that one. But if there are missing pedestrian ramps, that's definitely something we would like to know about so that we can plan how to address that.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll look into that location. Yeah. Can the post boxes be removed from Rosewood Boulevard to prevent drivers from trying to stop and get mail during rush hour, even crossing to the wrong side of the road to get mail?
I'm not sure about that one. I don't think we would typically remove post boxes, but if there's enough traffic, we might be able to look at some sort of crossing or even a timed parking restriction or something like that that might allow people to move in and out of that stall right by the post box quicker so that they don't have to cross the street. Yeah, that's all I can think of there. Natalie, got anything?
Yeah, well, I was going to say Canada Post selects those post boxes location, and that's not up to us, and that's not something that we want to get into designating for them. But as Julian mentioned, we can look at either a loading zone or something in front of those to facilitate movement through the post boxes. We can't stop people from crossing the street to get their mail. That's their decision to make. I can't say it's the safest decision that they're making, but they might be easier to do that than to pull a U-turn to get in front of the mailbox. So, and another comment about that Tim's Rosewood and Leadingham Way, Tweed. There needs to be some controls at this intersection for both pedestrians who are crossing and for vehicles making left-hand turns. It's so dangerous. And I know the last time I made a left-hand turn there, I think it was the fence line that was really restricting my visibility on the northeast corner, I think it was.
Okay.
There's to be a fence that kind of obstructs the view. But
yeah,
anyways, a few things
with the curve to the east there.
Yeah, make it a little tricky.
So sounds like we've heard from a few people. There's some work to do there at that intersection for both pedestrians and vehicles.
Yeah, definitely a hot spot for this neighborhood. Yeah. I would also like to point out that during your data collection, there are intrinsic factors that might not be captured. Most notably, due to street orientation, there is often full sun glare during rush hour times. So ingress in the morning and school drop-off, and egress end of day along Rosewood Boulevard from Rosewood Gate to Tweed Lane for several intervals of greater than 250 meters.
Okay.
I guess we might have to do some field observations at different times of day to kind of capture some of the issues that they're seeing.
Mm-hmm. Like we do that solid kind of data collection to get the numbers, but we also do those, we'll do field visits to drive it during different times of day just to get a feel for some of those other factors that might not be obvious just counting the traffic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a follow-up to the mailbox question. Crossing the road equals pulling in front of the mailbox from the opposite side of the road, so they're parked on the wrong side of the road. So they're not crossing as a pedestrian, and they're not pulling a U-turn like we were thinking. They're driving on the wrong side and pulling in.
Good.
Yeah, so good to know.
In that case, it sounds more of an enforcement issue. I'm not sure if we have anything in our kind of toolbox to address that.
That would be a tough one to correct, I think. Yeah. What is the timeline for completing the extension of Rosewood Drive exit to Zimmerman?
Rosewood Drive exit. I may have to get back to you in the minutes on that one. I don't know if I know that answer offhand.
I think that one is development driven. So as the neighborhood builds out, it'll make its way further east. Okay, and follow up about the baseball diamonds and McKay Park. The lowered curbs would be on Olson near the school. Yeah, so I think that is the same location got by email. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. To help slow down some traffic on Taylor and other park areas, it could be helpful to have some wildlife crossing warning signs. There are often rabbits crossing roads.
Do you know if that's something we've done anywhere else in the city, Natalie? I'm not familiar with any locations.
So wildlife crossing warning signs are not speed control devices. We follow the Transportation Association of Canada's guidelines for signs and when to install them and when they're appropriate. So the wildlife crossing signs outlined in that guide is usually related to deer and not rabbits. Mm-hmm. It's not something that we would be doing for Taylor. The speed limit on Taylor Street east of Boychuk Drive should be increased to 60 kilometers per hour. This road is multi-lane divided with limited access, no houses facing it, and no driveways. In these regards, it is no different than Boychuk Drive south of 8th Street, on which the speed limit is 60.
Yeah, we've heard that comment from a few different people. And once again, kind of this NTR mainly looks at the roads inside the neighborhoods. We're not specifically looking at those outer arterial roads, but we have heard it from a few different people, so it'll be something we look at, you know, through a separate process, not necessarily part of this neighborhood traffic review.
Would it be possible to restrict traffic on Leadingham so that they can only make a right turn? So that's near that Tim's intersection as well, so that they're not trying to cross 2 lanes of traffic to turn south on Boychuk.
Yes, like one of our things that we can look at doing is a directional closure. So restricting certain movements if there is significant problems at intersections. You know, we have done that at other locations in the city. So it's definitely something we're going to have to at least consider at some of these locations, or at least these ones that have come up a few times with these long queues or difficult turns.
And then another comment agreeing with the speed on Taylor being increased to 60. It's much like McCormick, no houses or business entrances. Okay, well, that was a lot of information. You guys really had some good comments. That's great. That's all the new ones in the chat right now. While people might still be entering their other comments, maybe I'll jump over to some of the other comments that we've heard from other residents, but we didn't have a chance to map it on Julian's slide before tonight's presentation. So one of them was a request for a yield sign at Flynn Lane and Flynn Manor.
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff we've talked about tonight is pedestrian safety and speeding, but we are also looking at some of these little things, like are we missing a yield sign at some of these intersections? We want to hear about that stuff too, because it's a relatively easy fix and can, you know, make your commute to and from your house easier.
Yeah. And there was a request for a parking restriction to improve sightlines from one of the exits to the commercial area on Harold Road.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
I think this one was coming kind of near the grocery store, the medical center. I believe they're saying it's difficult to turn northbound or southbound just with the cars parked so close to the exits. So we do have we do try to keep it so there's at least a meter on either side of a driveway to clear those sight lines. So in cases where there's, you know, a curve in the road or some other problem causing people, you know, not to meet that requirement, we can add in those parking restrictions. So that's something we'll have to look at.
Yeah, and we did get a comment that someone isn't able to hear anymore. So I'm hoping that's not a universal issue. If you are having troubles hearing us, please let us know. But I think that might be an isolated issue on their end. There was also a concern with speeding and pedestrian safety at the park near Meadows and Pritchard. And that resident requested a pedestrian crossing.
Yeah, so kind of one of the common themes I've heard tonight and in the past few weeks is just the pedestrian crossings near all the parks. So I think that's something we're going to be taking a really close look at in the coming months.
Yeah. Okay, and there was another new one in the chat box. Move the bus stop at Leadingham Crescent and Rosewood Boulevard from beside the mailbox, the northwest corner, to the northeast corner to improve sightlines, please. So Leadingham.
Okay.
Rosewood Boulevard, so from the northwest to the northeast. So I think often our transit does a far side stop, which is why it would be across the intersection, but we can talk to them about that.
Mm-hmm.
From the northwest to the northeast. So it could be because there are driveways on that northeast corner that they didn't want to block. That would be part of why they selected that location. But we can take a look at that location and see if there's another solution, or talk to our colleagues at Transit and see. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's it in the chat box. It sounds like that resident can hear again, so I'm glad to hear that. There was a concern about speeding around the curve on Meadows Boulevard near Sinclair Crescent. And they were also hoping to get a parking restriction to increase sight lines there.
Yeah. I think we've heard at a few locations, just with going around the curves in the neighborhood, just having people speeding and also not being able to see that oncoming traffic. So that's something we're going to have to take a look at and see if there's anything we can do to help address those issues.
And there was a follow-up to the bus stop, and that was the wrong location. It's Lettingham and Gillies. So from the northwest corner to the northeast corner at that intersection. Okay. Yeah, so no driveways on either corner, so yeah, something for us to look at.
Yeah, we have a pretty good working relationship with our colleagues in transit, so we can have a discussion with them.
And another comment we got, either via email or the online survey, there was a concern with the amount of drivers making U-turns in the school zone on Olson Lane. Despite the roundabout being there, it seems like a lot of parents are just pulling U-turns just rather than going to the roundabout and turning around. So it's a concern for all of our pedestrians on the road, and there's always so much activity in our school zone. So
yeah,
something
understandable.
It is, yeah. And I suspect we're going to see more of that this year, as more people will likely be driving their children than sending them on the bus. So it'll be a good time to observe that this year, to see how that goes.
Yeah.
There was also a request for a no exit sign on Pickler Cove. Well, seems like they might be seeing people that aren't destined for that that crescent, or that cul-de-sac, I should say.
I think that is a little cul-de-sac, if I remember correctly.
Cul-de-sac, yeah, Pickler's Cove, that sounds right, cul-de-sac.
Oh, and I guess it's might not be totally obvious that it's not a through street, so that's definitely something we can look into.
Yeah. So some of these we've heard earlier, so. Yeah, so here's another comment about speeding past the playground on Slimmin Road. Numerous cars are parked on either side of the road in the area, making it difficult for motorists to see small children playing and crossing the road. And they suggest either a flashing light at the crosswalk or speed humps on either side of the playground. We also have raised crosswalks so that the pedestrians are elevated. So that's another option that we could look at there. If it is speeding, that's a problem.
Yeah, we've heard from a few different people asking for some enhanced pedestrian devices at that location. So we'll be taking a look.
And this is the same crosswalk, but they say Drivers accelerate from the four-way stop on Herald Road, and then they head past the Dairy Queen, heading east, and they don't realize, or they're unconcerned that they're approaching the Hyde Park playground. So yeah, they had some suggestions as well. Maybe they're calling them traffic calmers. The wide white lines, so I think a zebra crosswalk, a speed hump, a pedestrian walk light, or a three-way stop sign.
Yeah, those are definitely all things that we will be able to look at and hopefully be able to put in there to make things better.
Okay, so there's a couple more in the chat box. So one of them was late joining. So they were wondering about the timeline for the Taylor Street East extension to Meadows Parkway. Did you want to go over that board again, Julian?
Sure. So the section, so Meadows Parkway, and then the small little section of Taylor Street between West Road and Meadows Parkway is expected to open to two-way traffic this month. That's the orange portion on the map you can see on your screen. And then the two eastbound lanes on the south side of Taylor Street between Rosewood Gate and Meadows Parkway is expected to open to traffic at the end of October. So it'll be the two lanes on the south side of the road, but it will be traffic traveling in both directions until they build those northern set of lanes. So Meadows Parkway in the small section in the next couple weeks, and then the rest of it in the next month or so, or the rest of that section of Taylor in the next month or so, or not month, sorry, by the end of October.
Yeah.
Forgot what month it is.
Yeah. It's not the end of summer yet, Julian. Don't curse us. There was a comment here from the chat about Gillies Bay. All of the homeowners park in there because there's nowhere else to park. And every day for the last 2 weeks, parking enforcement comes and gives tickets. I've been parking there for 4 years and no problems till now. We should be allowed to park in the middle. Is there a median island there? Can you zoom in a little more, Chelsea? Yeah, that is kind of a median island, right? Or not a median island, some kind of channelization. No, no, it's not. Yeah.
Yes, I haven't run into this in the past. How have we dealt with this at other locations, Natalie?
Yeah, I haven't seen one quite like this in my time in the city. I know there is in our traffic bylaw, it does say that you can't park in a cul-de-sac. So I'm assuming parking enforcement is treating it like that. You have to park angle parking along the curb, I should say, not that the parallel parking along the curb, not that there's no parking, but it's parallel parking along the curb on the outside of the cul-de-sac and not in the middle, unless otherwise signed. So they are enforcing the traffic bylaw as it's written. And it'll be hard for us to sign parking is allowed if there's nowhere to place signposts. We can't just have them floating there in empty space because that'll be a hazard to people. So we can take a look at that. I just can't visualize the solution just by looking at it right now. Okay, and there's a couple more that came in here through the chat. Okay, yeah, so follow up to Gillies, tell the city to allow parking. I've talked to everybody in Gillies Bay and they will all sign a petition to enable parking in the middle. So that's helpful when everyone's in agreement. That shows it's a good solution for those of you who live there. But like I said, they are enforcing the bylaw as it's written, and until we can sign it or indicate otherwise, that's likely what they'll be enforcing. And then another follow-up comment to that is that driveways are often so wide, there isn't room for parallel parking in some of those small cul-de-sacs. And that is tricky in our new developments when it is rolled curb. We do have driveway crossings do have a maximum width that they're supposed to be, but often when it's rolled curb, people will pour concrete for wider than the allowable driveway crossing, which limits the parking on street. So it is a tricky situation. So we can take a look at it, but I make no promises on what the outcome will be. Sorry. Okay. Also, coming from the school to head to Gillies Lane, the ramps don't line up with the paths. Please make proper ramps on the sidewalk coming from the ball diamond. So I think that's related to that McKay Park comment that we heard earlier.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's the same location. We'll have to double check. But Gillies Lane is up with that. I don't know, but they do mention the ball diamond as well. So
I have to go out there and take a look, but good to know.
And then follow up to the Taylor Street extension slide. What was shown in green? Will that be completed this fall too?
Yes, the section in green was the part that'll be done by the end of October of this year.
Okay, so that's all that's in the chat box right now. So we did have another comment that we received that we didn't get to add to the slides. Eaton Crescent in the Meadows is off Rosewood, and there's a park located across from Eaton Crescent across Rosewood Boulevard, and they are requesting a crosswalk with a flashing light there as well.
Okay. I think it might be Meadows Boulevard. I'm not sure if Eden crosses Rosewood Boulevard.
Eaton Crescent in the Meadows off of Rosewood. It's a park located across from Eaton Crescent off of Rosewood Boulevard. Much. Might have to follow up with them. I think that one was an email one, so we might have to follow up with them on the exact location. Eaton Crescent. Oh, maybe it's the one with Eaton Crescent and Gray Eyes Steel Way. I'm not sure. Okay, we'll have to follow up on that one. Okay, so the pedestrian ramp is 2 separate locations, they clarified. It's across from Gillies Lane. McKay Park is further south along Olson, lining up with the walking path. So there's 2 locations along Olson, I guess.
Okay.
One across from Gillies Lane and one for McKay Park.
I'll just have to get out there and take a look in person.
Yeah, it's often where depends where the pathways kind of line up. The walkways in the park is probably where they want to cross. And then there's another question in the chat. Is there any way they can move the timeline for completion up by 2 to 3 weeks for Taylor Street? Early snow is what stopped the other extension from being completed last year. Mid-October is more realistic for beating the 0 temps and snow.
Like our construction group is handling that project, so I'm not too sure if there's any way to move it up, but they do say by the by the end of October, so it's possible they're done earlier, depending on weather and how the work goes.
Yeah, I'm sure they're doing their best to get it done this season, but it's all weather dependent and contractor dependent. So when you're doing field work, there's always unforeseen circumstances that can crop up. So I'm sure they are aiming for sooner, but they don't want to promise sooner just in case something comes up that they didn't foresee. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything else in the chat right now.
Should we maybe go over the next steps now and then answer any other questions if they come in after, just in case people want to take off?
Sure, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, we can cover next steps, sure.
So we're currently in stage 1 of the NTR process, which involves this public meeting and then collecting any other feedback in the form of emails, letters, phone calls for the next month. Once we finish collecting that input from the neighborhood, we'll move into stage 2, which involves collecting data, conducting those field observations we've talked about, and developing a draft traffic plan that shows how we will address the issues that have been raised. Kind of as we talked about earlier, there are some changes with all of the traffic patterns as a result of COVID, but we are doing our best to kind of keep track of those and adjust for them where possible. We are already starting to see a shift back to normal since the reopening has begun, and have already started doing some of our data collection. Once we have that draft traffic plan, we'll host a second public meeting to present the traffic plan to the neighborhood. This will be another opportunity for you to provide feedback, and there will be another comment period following the second meeting. Once that comment period has come to an end, the traffic plan will be finalized and a report will be prepared and presented to the Standing Policy Committee on Transportation. The fourth stage is the implementation of the traffic plan, which includes the preparation of plans and installation of the recommendations. Signage, pavement markings, and temporary traffic calming measures are typically installed within a year after presenting the report. Traffic calming measures will be installed temporarily for a minimum of 1 year. Due to the pandemic, it is unlikely that this stage will begin before the spring of 2022. The evaluation stage, including the follow-up assessments to determine the effectiveness of the temporary traffic calming measures. Traffic calming measures that are shown to be effective will be scheduled for permanent installation, whereas the traffic calming measures that are shown not to be effective will either be modified or removed. This stage is dependent on stage 4 and will be scheduled to begin 1 year after the temporary traffic calming measures are installed, so that we can determine the effectiveness of the measures in all seasons. So that's a brief overview of the 5 different stages of the NTR process. If you have any questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A chat and we can get to them along with any other neighborhood traffic concerns you still have.
Yes, so we did have a couple of follow-up comments that came in while you were chatting there, Julian. And I just want to mention the timeline. As it says on the slide, it's pandemic dependent. So we are hoping that it will be done sooner than that. We're just giving ourselves a bit of a buffer because we're not sure how the work will roll out if we start having outbreaks and things and we have to stop data collection or stop online engagement for whatever reason. It will slow us down. So one of the follow-up questions was around that Gillies Bay, and they were asking, could we add an island in the middle so they could park around it?
I guess that's something we'll have to take a closer look at and just see how big the bay is or if it's able to accommodate it. I'm not really too sure. It's definitely a unique situation.
It is, yeah. And then another question was related to Rosewood Square. When will Rosewood Square be worked on? What will it look like? And is it commercial?
Let's see. Rosewood Square is just south of Rosewood Gate and Rosewood Boulevard, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, it's kind of a little, yeah, square. It's not, yeah.
So what? Yeah, go ahead, Natalie. I'm not entirely sure on this one. You probably know a bit better.
Well, I was just going to say these local internal roads are the responsibility of the developer to build, and so it's on their schedule. And as development progresses, they kind of roll out those roads. So we don't control that schedule. And I do believe there is some commercial on there. There is a concept plan for the neighborhood that we could maybe provide a link to when we prepare the minutes, so that you can kind of see the intended land use for that area.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was another question related to the schedule. Yeah, so this could take 2 more years before any of the changes are made.
So data collection will be this fall, and then we'll be presenting the draft traffic plan next year. And then after that, it really, the pandemic and how soon we can get to things will be one of the big factors. But like I said, some of the quicker things like signs and pavement markings can be put up a bit sooner than some of the other larger ones, but we still have to get through that data collection and making that decision of what we're going to put up.
Yes, yeah, we'll have a better idea on the schedule at the second meeting once we know when we can have that meeting and how extensive the traffic plan is. Without the pandemic, we were typically installing the signage and pavement marking measures the same summer that the report was presented. And then the other devices like pedestrian push button devices or traffic signals are scheduled about 3 to 5 years, depending on funding. So if it's a larger budget item, we put it in our budget request to be prioritized with all locations throughout the city. And then as it gets funded, it gets installed. So timing is dependent on what the recommendations are. Market Drive Road heading toward the school. Is there a timeline for that road? So similar to Rosewood Square, we're not privy to that timeline. Our contacts at Construction and Design may know more. If we find out more, we can provide it in the minutes. Otherwise, we'll provide the link to the concept plan, and timing is development driven. So, all right. Looks like there's one more. Why is the pandemic slowing down the process so much? Is everyone laid off? No,
Part of it is the.
Yeah,
go ahead, Natalie.
I was just saying, no, not everyone's laid off. The reason that the pandemic slows things down so much is that we have to take extra safety precautions for our staff. So things that were fairly quick and easy to do as a team before now involves maybe 2 trucks going out, or maybe there's extra cleaning protocols for the equipment that they're using as they're sharing them, and things like that. So we're hoping it won't slow us down as much as we say in the schedule, but we just want to prepare you. If there is a fall outbreak and staff get sick, it will slow us down doing the work. We do have some, we are a team, so we do have some extra capability to do the work if someone gets sick, but we also have multiple neighborhoods to look at. So we do have a maximum capacity that we can do as well on our end. So we'll do our best, and we're trying to stay as healthy as we can so we don't slow down. But we just wanted to prepare you that it could be a while. Another comment, have you consulted with school officials? There is significant concern about the ability of kids to cross Rosewood Boulevard to get to the school. So much that pre-COVID, they were considering asking older kids to gather up younger kids to safely cross the busy road together. Can a pedestrian crosswalk temporary not be installed rather than in 2 years? So there is a pedestrian crosswalk at Olsen and a curb extension.
Yeah.
So that's
Olsen
already,
and Rosewood Boulevard.
yes. Yeah, so I'm not sure if that's not the location they were thinking about. Yeah, so and they followed up with especially with the ask to walk, bike, and scooter to school rather than using buses this year. So we do work with the school officials quite closely on their requests, but they're with the pedestrian device that is already there. We're not going to be installing anything more than that until the outcome of this study is complete. I think it's pretty innovative of the school to kind of gather up these walking school bus plans that they have with older kids and younger kids, and that's a great solution to have to make it easier for the younger kids to walk. We haven't heard from the school officials at either of these schools yet this fall. I expect they have a lot of logistical things that they're working through before they contact us, but if they reach out to us, we will be working with them like we do every year. And then there was a question about adding a ramp for strollers could take 3 years. The pedestrian ramps, we have an ongoing inventory of missing ramps throughout the city, and we're funded at a level right now that allows us to install about 40 pedestrian ramps a year. So we tend to prioritize locations where we have a disabled user request that it's their route, or transit route, or then we look at parks and schools is kind of our next priority. We did receive, council did have a meeting on July 27th, and they did approve some funding through the Municipal Economic Enhancement Program for $1 million for additional pedestrian ramps. And we're coming up with a strategy on how to roll out that $1 million throughout the city. So I can't guarantee the timing for a ramp for strollers, but that is, from the neighborhood traffic reviews, that is a longer term solution that requires funding. It's not one that we can install, that we have in our operating budget to install. Yes, and then they are following up the question about Rosewood and Olsen. That is the right location, but they are looking for a crosswalk with lights, and having the older kids gather up younger kids can't be done now with COVID. So at this location, we do not have funding to install pedestrian crossing lights here. We have locations identified for 2020 and 2021. They're already identified. So we won't be looking to install a device here before then. The schools, I mean, this is pretty far from the school. Sometimes they do have flaggers, like they have a program where either the older school kids or staff or parent volunteers can, like a crossing guard. They can be a crossing guard at the crosswalk. And I don't know if that's something they've considered for that location, but that could be an option that could be explored with the school as well until we get funding or until we can look at the solution for this location. Okay, that's all I'm seeing. Okay, so someone did submit something. Some of these requests have been submitted for over 2 years ago, and they're safety issues, and to wait another 2 years is unacceptable. So if it's a traffic control, like I know the stop and yield signs, because this is a developing area, some of those may not have to wait until the neighborhood traffic review is completed. Sometimes the parking restrictions for sightline issues, if we identify it's clearly a safety concern, we may accelerate implementation before the neighborhood traffic review. But as I mentioned earlier, if it is one that will have an impact on another area of the neighborhood, we really want to implement it at the same time so that we're not causing a side effect further down the line that we didn't anticipate. So we have to really develop the traffic plan for the entire neighborhood for those. Okay, that sounds good. Not seeing anything new. Okay, yes. Oh, and the follow-up for the Olsen. Apparently the principal wasn't allowed to ask kids to do the crossing guard because it was too far away from the school. So, but maybe the parent volunteers would be an option. I'm not sure. Okay, so while people might still be submitting in the chat, I'm just going to enter our online evaluation survey in the chat box as well. We're always looking to improve our process and improve our engagement, so we'd really appreciate your feedback on how we did tonight. And if you can click on that link, it'll take you to a little brief survey with a few questions about what you thought for tonight and online engagement in general and the neighborhood traffic review process. Okay, I'm not seeing anything new. So maybe Julian, would you like to go over how to join the discussion, and if they think of something else, or if they talk to a neighbor who didn't have a chance to attend, how do they reach us and how do they submit those comments?
Sure. Yeah. So there's a few different ways you can send in your comments. You can go to Saskatoon.ca/engage and post your comment directly on the Rosewood and Lakewood Suburban Center NTR page. The city also has an interactive map for reporting traffic issues. A link to that map is shown on this slide. So you basically can pick exactly where the issue is and then give it a description of it, so there's no miscommunication. You can also call me directly at 306-975-3663. You can send me a letter using the address shown on the slide, or send an email to ntr@Saskatoon.ca.
Yes, and let me put that link to the Engage page in the chat as well.
Or if you see me around the neighborhood taking some pictures or collecting data, you could just come up and say hi and let me know about your concern there.
Okay, that sounds good. I'm just going to take a quick look through the chat box again. I'm not seeing anything new. Okay. So, Councillor Dubois, did you have anything you'd like to say to the group before we wrap up?
Hi, Natalie. Well, just very briefly, I want to certainly thank you, Natalie and Julian and Chelsea, for facilitating this meeting. These meetings are always so valuable and useful, and even though some of the things we heard, there are things we have been dealing with or have heard for a long time, and we'll continue to figure them out. And we heard some new issues as well. So I just want to thank everyone for participating tonight. It's so important to hear from the residents and the folks that live in the area, because they live there, they experience it, and that's how we can just, you know, improve it. So thanks to everyone for participating tonight. Much appreciated, and I wish everyone a good rest of the evening.
Thanks, Councillor Dubois. We appreciate you being here tonight, and I think it's always helpful when the councillors can attend these meetings and hear directly from the residents in their ward on what's happening in their neighborhood. I know we really appreciate the time people take as well to give us that feedback. The more information that we hear from you, the better of a traffic plan you're going to get when we come back, because it will address more of the concerns that you're seeing. So if we were unable to get to your question tonight, we will provide a response in the meeting minutes. I didn't see anything new in the chat box, so I'm hoping that we responded to everybody's concerns or comments. For those that we said we'd provide additional information, we'll add those to the meeting minutes as well. And the meeting recording will be posted to the Engage page as well in the next few days. It takes us a few days to put together the closed captioning for the recording, so we'll try to get that up as soon as we can. So just a reminder to provide us with your opinion on how tonight's meeting went. The online survey for the evaluation form is in the question and answer box, and we'd appreciate you taking the time to give us a little bit of feedback there. And on behalf of Julian, Chelsea, and myself, I'd really like to thank all of you for joining us tonight and for participating in the Rosewood and Lakewood Suburban Centre Neighbourhood Traffic Review. We really look forward to working with you on solving these traffic issues and coming up with a good traffic plan that we can discuss with you hopefully early next year. So thanks so much for participating, and we'll talk to you in 2021. Or unless you see Julian in the field, then you can talk to him then. Thanks so much. Hope to touch base soon. Take care.